I filmed this review 3 times. All right, third time's the charm, as they say. I want to start by saying that I really wanted to like this book more than I did. I did enjoy it, but it was not a satisfactory read for me. I originally rated this book 3 stars. After deliberating and preparing for this review, I knocked it down to 2 stars, and I'm gonna explain why in a bit. But I want to say that despite my rating, please go read this book. Please support the author because we need more books like this. We need more books with genderqueer and more masculine of center female protagonists who are like this, because the whole time I read this book, Pen was not saying, "Hey, I'm not like other girls," because she didn't need to, because she was. And I think that's very important to discuss. Now, I'm going to go into direct spoilers. I'm not going to summarize the book. Go to Goodreads if you want to decide this book is for you. I would recommend it. However, it has flaws, and I'm going to be talking about those today. So I did enjoy certain elements of this book. There are 3 things I really liked about this book. The most obvious is Pen herself, who is the protagonist of this book. She is very, like myself, as someone who identifies as butch, she really was a breath of fresh air. It was so relaxing to read in her character because she was not trying to convince me that she was ugly, that she was boring, that she was not like other girls, just that she liked other girls and that she has these friends, and yeah, one of them's a douche canoe and one of them's a doormat, but they're my friends. We'll get into that later. But Pen really gave me hope for the first time because as someone who grew up as a gay kid, I didn't have books like this where girl relationships were talked about. I most certainly didn't have any healthy talk of sexuality, and I think this book partially fills the need for that. Something else that this book does really well is it has female friendship in it. Pen befriends and sticks up for Olivia, who is an ex of Colby's. That's in parentheses and air quotes because they're still kind of seeing each other. Pen learns that Olivia has gotten pregnant, and instead of like kicking this girl to the curb like her best friend Colby wants her to do, Pen helps Olivia out. She goes with her to the clinic, to the abortion clinic, and the author could have inserted like a political narrative into this book. I don't think that was present. Whether what's right or what's wrong, what was explicitly kind of put in there was that this is your decision, but because your parents are not going to be here for you, I'm going to be there for you, regardless of what decision you make. And that's pretty much something really cool that we don't really see, because in a lot of YA, girls dump girls for guys, and there's so much emphasis placed on the romantic relationship between straight couples, and there's not a lot of platonic feelings or development between characters. And this is something that this book did fairly well, I believe. The third thing I really liked about this book was, of course, the relationship between Pen and Blake. It's probably the healthiest 16-year-old lesbian relationship I've ever read about, and one of the very few that I've read about, and that's saying something. I liked their dynamic. I liked that they were nerdy together. They both enjoyed video games. They just were who they were, and they liked each other, and they had a good relationship for the most part. There are some things that influence this relationship that I have issues with, but we'll get to that in the cons. Oh, and quickly, I wanted to add that I also loved Johnny's character. Johnny was my second favorite character next to Pen because he is the older brother that I wish I had. I am the eldest of 3, and I don't have an older sibling, and if I had an older sibling, I'd want it to be Johnny, because Johnny is the only person who sticks up for Pen. Pen is so busy sticking up for everyone else and defending everyone else's honor, but Johnny's the only person who sticks up for Pen, which is problematic, but I also really love that he does it. Now, the reason Johnny has to stick up for Pen is because they both share parents who are really emotionally detached. The cons of this book is that the parents are not written well. And on top of being poorly written, they are emotionally distant, and very flat. And I understand that when you're writing immigrant parents, because Pen and Johnny's parents are Portuguese immigrants, English is not their first language, and they speak in broken English. But the amount of just stonewalling both of their children with, you're not behaving like a proper woman, you're not behaving like a proper man, this is why are you causing us so much trouble, you don't respect us because you don't behave like, insert what a woman is supposed to be like here, insert what a man's supposed to be like here. That was constantly being hammered into these kids, and I think that it was just such an unimaginative way to write not only immigrant parents, but immigrant parents who have issues with their kids. That seemed to be the sole gripe between Pen and her mother and father, and also Johnny and his mother and his father. And it caused friction, sure, but I don't think it was executed well, because I had no sympathy whatsoever for either of these characters. They basically were exchangeable with one another. One was the mother and one was the father. They just behaved like cardboard cutout bad parents, on top of being really Catholic and really Portuguese. Like, there was nothing to them, really. And the little character development they do get at the very end of the book, it feels like too little too late. And I wish there was more reconciliation between them, but that is impossible because the characters are so flat. And even if they were, Pen would never forgive them. She goes to live with Johnny at the end of the book because she can't handle living with them. Well, that is realistic, and I wouldn't want any other ending for Pen. I really dislike these parents and the way they were written, and it was just so poorly done. Before I get into the really heavy stuff, I'm going to be talking about diction, because even though the writing in this book wasn't anything to write home about, but it was okay for the genre, for young adult. The protagonists are 16. I could believe that these characters were 16 by the way that they were written. However, the author had a very interesting way of having these characters express themselves. And I'm just gonna read a short quote from the author before I explain what I mean by that. This is from the Q&A in the back of the book that I have. What's up with the language in this book? The author replies, there's some not so great language in this book. There are curse words, and there are misogynistic and sexist words and expressions. When it comes to the swearing, that's easy. Lots of people swear. In this story, some of the characters don't curse, some do it once in a while, and some do it a lot. That's just how their voices came to me. End quote. That's just how their voices came to me. Now, that wouldn't be an issue if these characters actually f***ing swore in this book. The amount of instances, this is what all the tabs are by the way. Now, I'm not usually picky about cursing, but I'm picky about it with this book because the characters don't swear. They use what I'm gonna affectionately call kindergarten curses. There is the repetition of non-curse words in place of curse words by characters who don't care enough or are so flat. Why would they care? There's never an explicit reason for a character to say shiz instead of sh. There's never any given reason. There's no religious reason. There's only one instance I can think of in this book where there was a situation where Pen was in the middle of saying sh and then she switched to shiz, and that makes sense. But every other instance is them saying, oh, shiz, man. They're constantly using words shiz. Donkey crotch is in there. Yes, someone calling someone a donkey crotch instead of calling them a dick. Like, I can't think of an instance where any 16-year-old I know would substitute a swear for something else. And if there was a reason, it was never explicitly stated. So I take issue with the fact that this is how their voices came to me when they sound like elementary school kids. And even elementary school kids use f and sh. Like, it's just, why? Why? I think it's a serious oversight on the editor's part. Like, maybe 16-year-olds swear and not like, oh shiz, man, ha ha ha, oh shoot. Like, really? And that's a minor gripe, but it carries over to another part that I have where words are repeated. Now, I love Blake. Blake is Pen's girlfriend, but she has a catchphrase that is the most annoying thing, and it happens a lot. I was originally going to tab everything, but I got sick of it. So you're just gonna have to take my word when I say that this book full repeated kindergarten curses and catchphrases, and it is so annoying that I can't even convey it to you. It irritated me rereading this book. It irritated me when I first read this book. So Blake has a very specific catchphrase. I'll just read it to you. I was slightly pissed when she told me she was bailing, but then she told me you were going to be my new partner. I think that wins everything. Now, don't have an issue with that, but she repeats it a lot. He lives in the McKinley buildings then, I say, and she nods. My brother does work there. Oh yeah? How old's your brother? 26. I talk about him for a bit. Sounds like he wins everything. Like, really. I just think that this author has never spoken to a teenager.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Really? Like, I'm 20 years old. I'm barely an adult. And yet I know that they swear. And I know that they don't use catchphrases like,
oh my god, that wins everything. Oh my god, you win everything. He wins everything. That wins everything.
I know there were sensitivity readers for this, but I feel like they were all adults. Because this breaks immersion. You want to make it believable, you have to go all the way. I don't care if it makes you uncomfortable. You gotta write things that make you uncomfortable. There are things in here that are uncomfortable. There's sexual assault in this book. And I'm gonna put a time card for when you can come back if that is something you don't want to hear about. But basically, Penn's best friend Colby assaults her twice in this novel. Now, I don't have an issue personally. I have never experienced this kind of traumatic event, thankfully, and it's not something that I am, quote, triggered by, but the way it was executed was something else. And it really, really bothered me throughout the entirety of this book that no one was sticking up for Penn. No one was listening to Penn. Everyone just dumped on Penn. Johnny couldn't help Penn with this situation because she didn't tell anybody. Not that I'm blaming Penn for what happened, because that's not what I'm saying, but there was no justice for Penn by the author. Not even the author stuck up for Penn Oliveira. And that's messed up. So what happened was Colby basically non-consensually kissed Penn. He kissed her, and she was like, yeah, that didn't happen, right? And he's like, nah, it never happened. And then she defiantly goes and cuts her hair short. Had this been the only instance of her altering her identity or her queer presentation in a way as a result of what Colby had done to her, I would have been okay with that. I'm like, okay, she's showing him like, yeah, you better not try that again, bucko, because I ain't straight. You don't kiss me again, right? Then the gaslighting starts, and Colby gaslights the shit out of Penn. But what does he want? What he's always wanted. What he's always used her for to get him girls, except this time, he wants Penn to sleep with him. Really? And not only is that shitty, but the way it's executed, the way that he tries to convince her is shitty is acknowledged. This is shitty. But then he assaults her. He sticks her hand down his pants, and then he does the same thing to her. He sticks his hand down her pants at the same time.
And he's like, we should just have sex. You need a real man to have sex with you. You need to know what it's like. You can't be inexperienced. You need to man up.
And it's just all this shit, all the while at the same time telling her,
I'm not gay. You're a girl. I'm a guy. But I'm not gay for having sex with you. We're straight.
Like, just all of this shit. This absolute bullshit. And this tripe. And Penn is fighting back and she's saying, no, I do not like you. I do not want to have sex with you. I like feminine girls. I only like feminine girls, okay? And he's continually gaslighting her, which is so shitty. And then he puts his hand down her pants. And not only does Penn not tell anyone, which, big surprise, she's not going to tell anyone that, right? At the end, when they have their fight, their fist fight, there's no resolution. She doesn't say to him, oh, hey, in front of all these people. Why the hell did you do that to me, man? Why did you do that to me? The author does not give Penn any resolution for what happened to her. Penn just goes and fights Colby, and it's like, why the hell did you say that we had sex when we didn't? And that's as far as she mentions, like, anything that happened between them. Why did you say that we had sex to everyone when we didn't? And she stands up for the things that happened with Olivia, the things that happened with Blake, but she never, ever gets resolution for what happened to her. And I think that it didn't need to happen on that football field. I understand that why she would not have said it there, but she still doesn't get it at the end. At the end, she does not get that resolution. She doesn't tell anyone. She doesn't tell Johnny. She could have told Johnny when they were alone and in private at his apartment, and he probably would have comforted her. Or even her getting therapy, like, hey, I need therapy because some things have happened to me that I can't talk about with you. No, none of that. Penn doesn't get help for sticking up for anyone. Penn just has to stick up for everyone else. The burden is hers to carry, which is so shitty and so unfair to this character because I liked her a lot. It is not fair. It's not fair. There's a lot of instances of that kind of behavior from men towards queer women, is that they think that they can cure them or fix them into becoming straight. And that's not okay. And I don't think that was intentional in this book, but it happened. That resolution was not there. And another thing is that every time one of these assaults happened, Penn acted out through her relationship. So I believe this was unintentional as well by M.E. Girard, but when Colby kisses her, she cuts her hair. When Colby assaults her, she ends up, not too much later into the book, starts a physical relationship with Blake. And I can't help but see that this is as a pattern, that she is being enacted upon by Colby, and then she reciprocates to her girlfriend. And I don't think it's too big of a conclusion to jump to, because that is a narrative that has existed for a very long time, and that narrative has come from the ex-gay community, where they say that a woman's relationships are only validated by the sexuality of a man. Her sexuality is only valid in a heteronormative situation where her sexuality is being encouraged and directed by a man. And I absolutely do not think this was intentional, but that's coming into it with my knowledge of how conservative Christians view gay people. That was all I could really see, was that, oh, Colby is influencing Blake and Penn's relationship, which really kind of spoiled my view of this book, which initially had been very positive, on top of all the other grammar gripes that I have with this book. And I just think it was poorly executed on a number of levels, which is ultimately why I rated this book 2 stars. Having said that, I do want people to read this book. Even though this book wasn't perfect and didn't do a good job on certain levels, it did good on the representation front of kids who know who they are and know who they like, or kids who present differently. I think this book had something good going for it. It just didn't do it all the way, and we need more books like this. So please, if you think that this is something you can read or would like to read, please go read it. Get it from your local library if you can't afford to buy it, and support M.E. Girard in her further future endeavors with novels, because this was good, but it was flawed, and I know we can do better, and we need to encourage the market to know that we want more books like this, and we want better books like this that improve upon what this book failed to do. As always, these are all my own personal opinions. If you agree, if you disagree, you can put that in the comments. Please be civil. If anyone's watching, please be civil. And yeah, if you'd like me to do any more queer book reviews or just book reviews in general, let me know with your suggestions. I have read Carol, I have read The Wall of Loneliness, my lesbian experience with loneliness, which I really enjoyed. If you find any of those titles interesting and would like me to review them, let me know in the comments, or if you have any suggestions, leave those down there as well. I don't remember having an intro, but stay safe, I guess. Hopefully I'll see you in the next one.